Hi, everyone, and welcome to the fourth session of the TA Greatness webinar series. You have arrived at the ultimate webinar for forward-thinking, data-driven talent acquisition leaders committed to measurable results. My name is Shiran, and I'm the CEO and founder of Informed Decisions Interview Intelligence. Me and my team supporting me behind the scenes are super excited to have you here today to discuss the golden grail of TA metrics, quality of hire. But before we start, let's do a bit of networking. So we would love to hear where you're joining us from today. So please share with us in the comments. As you share, so today's topic is a big one and probably the one that we get asked about the most by TA leaders. Basically, how do you actually measure quality of hire? And why did we choose this topic? Because most of us has just been wired to measure cost and efficiency metrics, but quality of hire is the metric that really proves talent acquisition's impact on the business. And today we're going to break it down and provide you with different options to measure it, no matter where you're at on your journey. Okay, we will also address um, some key questions like the accountability question. Who should actually be held accountable for quality of hire? So before we start, let's see where you're joining us from today. So hi, Edward from the Netherlands and Angela from Iowa and Emmanuel from Derby. And Bill, hi, great to have you. And Yi, thanks everyone for being here today. Thanks everyone, and very happy to have you. So let's start. And before we drill down, we actually want to hear you. So what I want to hear from you is what's quality of hire for you. If I say to you, this was a quality hire, what does that actually mean to you in real life? Okay, share with us in the comments. Okay, what I'm asking is what does quality of hire mean in your world? And as you're sharing a bit more about why quality of hire is such a powerful metrics, because it's actually not a TA metric. It's actually a business metric. And when you measure it well, you connect hiring to real outcomes like productivity, like revenue, like retention. And also it's the most translatable and transferable metric to actual dollar value. So companies that measure it well elevate their TA process from execution to actual business strategy. Okay. Um, so, and two more important notes as you're sharing how do you currently measure quality of hire is one that we've already had three very impactful sessions of the TA Greatness webinar session. Each one was dedicated to a different TA metric that measures talent acquisition effectiveness. So we had one on accuracy, one on fairness, and one on efficiency. And if you weren't able to join us, don't worry, you can catch it on our website under the resources tab. Another thing is that towards the end of this session, we will also have time for your questions. So feel free to drop them in the chat as we go. Okay, so let's see what is quality of hire in your world. So for a business, to me, it means skills matching out budget perfectly. Okay, skills and budget matching, high performer according to the business definition. Someone successfully serving in the role. The new hire meets or exceeds the skills required for the role and is a cultural fit. for the team or company. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. And definitely, all of these are relevant components of quality of hire. Now, let's just start with the dry academic definition of quality of hire. So, the definition is the immediate and long-term value a new hire delivers to the organization, measured through high job performance and longer tenure. Okay, I think basically everything that you've mentioned and that you shared falls into one of these categories. So if we simplify quality of hire to like a very basic formula, it's performance and retention. So let me know if you agree with this definition, or is it missing something? Okay, and now uh, let's go further into the accountability debate. So we want to talk about it because it comes up a lot when we talk to talent acquisition leaders about quality of hire, the accountability issue. We have spoken with so many TA leaders who tell us that honestly, quality of hire shouldn't be on us. The business is the one that runs most of the interviews. They manage the people. They're responsible for retention and performance. And I want to ask you guys, I want to see what this group thinks. So let's do just a quick poll. Who do you think should be accountable for quality of hire? So comment with an emoji. So if you think it's TA, then give us a heart. If you think it's the business, give us a like. And if you think it's a shared accountability, then um, give us the light bulb. Okay, I'm curious to see how you feel and how you see this. Um, and as you do, um, we'll also share, of course, how do we see it and inform decisions. So, uh, what we strongly believe in is that quality of hire is a shared accountability, because saying that talent acquisition isn't responsible for quality of hire because the business runs most of the interviews and they're responsible for the candidate once they become a hire, it's a little bit like a basketball coach saying, I'm not responsible for the team's performance on the coach on the uh, on the field because I'm not the one who took the shots. And uh, the coach doesn't play the game. That's true, but they do select the players, they train the team, they build a strategy, they create the conditions for success. And that's TA role exactly. So TA owns and should own the design of the hiring process, the training of the managers, the candidate experience, and the continuous improvement of the process, while business, of course, owns performance management and retention. And in order for both to have a successful measurement of a quality of hire and a shared understanding. So, of course, first we need to align on what quality actually looks like. And you can see even within this group, there are multiple definitions. So the alignment between TA and the business is really important and already creates also the basis for that shared accountability. Okay, and another important note regarding accountability is that, of course, after a certain point in time, let's say 12 months, if a hire underperforms or leaves, then it's often because it's more related to on the job factors. But even then, TA's role isn't over, okay? Because what you can do and should do is to analyze data that will provide you with insights about why those people left. So, hiring managers' feedback and exit surveys can allow you to have an understanding of different things that can tie into the hiring process. So, for example, Were there any hiring signals that we've missed? It might be that we've missed on some key motivations and even skills that made that person try and eventually uh, leave or get terminated. Another thing is that it might be, and in many times it's related to management. So our management isn't able to retain, to develop. Sometimes it even demotivates employees and makes them leave. But that also says something to us. It means that we might need to improve the way that we hire our leaders and focus more on leadership skills in the hiring process and not just on the technical side. And another thing is, are there patterns that we can address that, again, are relevant to the hiring process? So one example for one of our clients is that we saw in their exit survey that there was a significant portion of exiters that reported leaving because the role, uh, what they've heard about the role or what they were told about the role and what it encompasses in the hiring process was completely different than the role itself. So there was a complete misalignment of expectations. And of course, we want our hiring process to clearly manage expectations about how the job actually looks like. So that is something that they were able to take and then refine their process to better reflect the challenges of the day to day of the actual job. Okay, so that's a few important words about accountability. Okay, and the bottom line here is that continuous improvement, of course, is a core talent acquisition responsibility. And so, just right before we dive into the actual measurement, let's just recap the common challenges we all face in measuring quality of hire. I'm sure most of them, if not all of them, uh, might sound familiar to you. So um, we've talked about ownership and accountability. That there isn't any clear ownership and accountability. Um, oh, okay. Sorry, I thought the slide went off, but I'm happy you can see it. So no clear ownership or no standard definition of what quality of hire means. Like we just discussed, it can change within the organization. It definitely changes between different organizations. Another thing is the over reliance on the manager's assessment. A manager's assessment is, of course, they're the closest person that knows and should provide their perspective, but it can be biased in multiple ways. So first, there is just the assessment pattern of the manager. Some managers can be lenient, some can be harsh, um, and really not use the entire assessment scale. And in general, what we see in managers' assessment is something that we call a ceiling effect, because most of the scores are leaning towards the bottom part of the scale. And that's because managers find it difficult to be completely honest about the performance, because eventually they need to keep working with those people, and they don't want to be perceived as not nice. Okay, so also the need to be nice and the need to be liked also takes a place into that. Um, and another challenge that we have is that quality of hire is really hard to understand in real time. Most of the indicators that we have are lagging indicators, meaning it takes time until we can measure it. If it's retention, if it's performance. Okay. And having said all of that, we still have a framework. We have created a framework to guide teams no matter where they are. And we call it the quality of hire measurement ladder. And you can think of it as 5 levels of measurement maturity, from basic to advanced. And what we're going to do now is go over each one of these levels. So let's go. So at level 1, the basic level, we have a turnover rate. Okay, so you can start here, and for many, this is already a powerful indicator. So just tracking retention at key milestones like 3 months in, 6 months in, 12 months in, because early attrition is often a hiring red flag. It's very easy to pull, and it tells you if your hiring process is a revolving door. So a basic indication, but yet a very strong indication. And what you see, like the screenshot that you see at the bottom of the slide, by the way, is just the way that our platform presents to the users, to the interviewers, and to the hiring teams their uh, new hire retention and turnover rate. So this is level one, turnover rate. Moving forward to level two. In level two, we're already integrating another quantitative measure, which is the performance scores. So basically using your existing performance evaluations. And this could be either your overall performance score, or if you're not using a numeric scale, but just performance categories. So the performance categories. And in addition, and that's great if you have that, also objective KPIs like sales targets, like customer satisfaction scores, like project delivery. And this already ties the hiring process to concrete, measurable outcomes. Now, the limitation here is that in many times the hiring process and the performance management process, they speak in different languages. Meaning when we hire the person, we assess them on specific scales, competencies, motivations, but then in the work itself, we assess them on completely different things. And then it's kind of hard to connect the dots and to understand what's the connection between um, what we've assessed for in the interview and the actual performance. And also, like we said, a manager's perspective can be biased because of multiple reasons that we've mentioned. But again, once you have turnover, you have performance scores, okay, you already have two data points. You're starting to build a puzzle. So great. Now, moving forward to level three. So in level three, it's still the hiring manager's perspective, but now we're doing it in a designated hiring manager survey. So this survey is something that you give your hiring managers to complete, usually 3 to 6 months in, depending on the time to onboard. And what it should assess is, of course, overall job performance on a numerical score. That's our recommendation. And also to assess core components that are related to the job. So, for example, cultural fit, it's either to the job or to the organization. Like we said here also before when we've asked what's quality of hire. So also the cultural fit aspect is of course important. So you should decide on the core aspects that are relevant for you to assess if you want to do something standardized across the board, across all roles. So the key components, okay? And ask the hiring managers to assess both the overall performance, but also those key components. So, but we also have an enhanced version of this designated survey. And in the enhanced option, what we suggest is actually doing a skills-based survey. So what does that mean, and how does that differ from what I just described? So in I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that you're actually able to see me. Okay, let me just refresh you for a second because I have a concern that you might have lost me. Okay, great. No, I see that everything is okay. So what's the difference between what I just said and the enhanced option? So in the enhanced option, we're again asking the hiring manager to assess overall performance, but also the exact same skills that they've assessed in the interview process. So if you have an interview guide or a scorecard that has specific skills that you're assessing, then have the hiring manager assess those same specific skills in addition to the overall performance of um, the employee. Now, what this creates is actually a closed feedback loop that allows you to understand, does the candidate or does the new hire now demonstrate the skills in the role that we've assessed in the hiring, that were important enough for us to assess in the hiring? Do they actually exhibit those also on the job? Now, this is just a quick view of how it looks like on our platform. So on our platform, the hiring manager automatically gets a survey after 3 or 6 months, and you can see they're being asked to assess both the overall performance, but also the specific skills that they've assessed in the interview process. And what the types of analysis that this allows us to create behind the scenes, and you can also do it easily once you collect the data, it looks like this. What you're actually seeing here is the different skills that were assessed in the interview process. And what we're doing is looking at those skills scores and the difference, the gap that we have from those skill scores to the actual overall performance evaluation of the manager. And in order to simplify, what you're seeing here, basically a high bar indicates a large gap, meaning there is a large gap between the score that this skill got in the interview process and the performance evaluation on the job. So that actually means it's a bad thing, okay? Because that means that these are less predictive. These skills are less predictive versus those. What we see here, on the other hand, on the other end, is that we have skills that their gap from the overall performance evaluation is uh, small, and that means that they're more predictive. So basically, this translates to a simple, okay, so it's an analysis, but eventually you can translate an analysis like this to something very simple for your hiring managers that looks like this. Okay, this is again just a snippet from the reports that we're providing, but basically this is what it says. From the entire list of skills that we want to assess, and we know that hiring managers sometimes they want a grocery list, but what we can actually see, what are those specific skills that are actually tied to quality of hire, that are actually tied to performance, to retention, versus the ones that are not related. And of course, we will want to refine our process to focus more on the more predictive skills. Okay, so that was level 3, designated survey. Now we're kind of moving past the hiring manager and their perspective to a multi-perspective approach. Now, before we'll dive into that, we're approaching the end. And at the end, we're going to allow some time for your questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments now. And so going back to the multiple perspective. So think about your interview process or your hiring process. Most likely, you're not making a decision about a candidate just based on one perspective, be it the hiring manager or the recruiter. You'll usually have several interviews, an assessment, a professional task. The same approach should apply for measuring quality of hire. So if we want to do something that is accurate, we better combine and we better integrate multiple tools and multiple perspectives. And those perspectives can be, of course, hiring managers, but also peers, also customers, whether internal or external, and also organizational network analysis, which I will talk about separately. So just looking at the top three, hiring managers, peers, and customers, this might remind you of a 360 process, which I assume a lot of you are already doing for your senior leadership. But when you come to think about the way that we communicate and collect information and feedback today, we have much more tools like online communication tools like Teams and Slack and continuous listening tools that we can actually fairly easily and continuously collect this information, just asking each employee to answer one question per day about a peer, for example. Okay, so it shouldn't be that of a heavy lift already. It's something that can be collected continuously and processed at a specific point in time. Now, with regards to organizational network analysis, so in organizational network analysis, basically what we do is to ask team members um, or peers about, we just ask them who is the person you go to when you need X. So that X can be when you need professional support, like you have a question about a specific domain, or you need moral support, or you need to get motivated, etc. And what this allows us to understand is kind of to go from, the kind of formal and hierarchical structure to how connections look like on the day to day, and who are the people that are your knowledge brokers, that are your motivation brokers, that might be the informal leaders in the team, that if they leave, you might have a knowledge management problem. And that says a lot about their value to the team and to the organization. So organizational network analysis is a more of a focused effort, but the ROI is definitely valuable. So this was our fourth level, and these are examples of multiple perspectives that you can integrate, but maybe I've missed something. So if there are more perspectives that you're currently collecting and you're currently integrating, let us know. We want to learn from you. So share with us on the chat. And moving forward to our last level, to the most advanced level, which is actually reverse engineering um, your quality of hire. So what does that actually mean? So when you measure both your interview scores and the quality of hire, that allows you to reverse engineer your hiring process to understand what's working and what needs to be improved. So just by correlating some simple things, simple components with your quality of hire measures, then you are able to gain a lot of insight. So, for example, just taking your overall interview scores. So, if you have different interviews in your process, like an HR interview and a hiring manager interview and a peer interview, okay, just taking the scores of uh, each interview, the final scores, and correlating them with your quality of hire measure. Okay, be it retention, be it a manager evaluation, that allows you to actually see which of the interviews actually is better at predicting performance, is better at predicting quality hires. Another thing that you can correlate is the skill scores, exactly like we talked about before. So if you're um, scoring specific skills, you correlate them with your quality of hire measures to know which skills are more predictive. And even more granular than that, if you're scoring specific questions, then you can actually figure out which questions work better. So if you're asking behavioral questions, but you're also doing scenarios and simulations and technical challenges and brain teasers, God forbid. So which one work and which one and which less. Okay, so that allows you actually which types of questions should we be doubling down on. And the last thing is actual interviewer scores. So you have different interviewers on your team and they're providing scores to candidates. And what you can do is correlate specific interviewer scores with their results. And what you gain here is an understanding of whom from your interviewing team is better at predicting fit. And that's, by the way, the Google approach. So in Google, not everyone gets to interview. They build an interviewing cohort, uh, and people get to stay there based on their results, based on making better hires. Um, so all of these examples, basically, what this gives you is the ability to improve based on data and to make you and your team uh, be a true strategic and value generating function. So this is our level 5 and the last level. And now giving you the stage to asking your questions. So let's see uh, if you had questions. Let me see. Okay. So first I see a question about how do we measure some of the metrics for a new hire, or do we apply it after 1 year? So definitely I'll go back to the letter for 1 second, so we can have it front and center. Okay, so definitely turnover is something that you don't need to wait for a whole year. Some of your people will leave earlier, and that gives you a basis um, to analyze. Performance scores. So if you're doing a yearly performance evaluation, you can skip that and create a designated hiring manager survey. Also for multiple perspectives, I think after 6 months in the role, team members can definitely say something meaningful about working with a person. Okay, so that's with regards to what can we measure, and we don't need to wait an entire year for. Let's see if you had any other questions. Okay. Another question. Okay, great. I'm just kind of skimming through the responses, so bear with me. Um, So just another question that we had is, how do we actually hold interviewers accountable for quality of hire? And that's a great question, because usually in the way that we measure, uh, if there is an accountability, then it's a collective accountability. It's a shared accountability. So, for example, we measure quality of hire, and then we go to our hiring managers and to the hiring teams, and we say, "Hey, listen, like our first year turnover is fairly high. The rate of top performers that we're hiring is fairly low. We need to improve together." And then you do some kind of interview training, etc. But then what happens when it's just a shared responsibility? It kind of disappears because nobody is held individually accountable. The way to actually hold individual interviewers accountable is to provide them with their data. So exactly like we saw just before, if you have their scores and you have their recommendations, their scores, and you also have their their quality of hire metrics, the retention, the performance of the people that they've hired, you can actually measure individually and present individually. Now, that's only the first step, because the next step, like if we want them to improve and not just to provide them with the information, they also need to know what are they doing well and what they should be improving, which is actually providing them with feedback about their interviewing behaviors. Okay, so that's already to take it to another level. Um, but definitely, it should move from just overall accountability or aggregated shared accountability to a individual accountability. Um, so thank you so much for your questions. I do want to share just one more thing with you before we go. Our time is up. So, first, thanks so much for being with us today. I hope that you've learned something new. And even if you implement just one of the tips that we shared here today, you're already well on your way to a more accurate and strategic hiring process. If you need any help with seamlessly embedding quality of hire measurement into your hiring process, don't hesitate to reach out to us at Informed Decisions. And also, we invite you to follow our company page to stay tuned for more engaging content on achieving TA greatness, and to watch out for the date and time of our next TA greatness session, which will be about getting started with skills-based hiring. So thanks so much for being here. Stay great, stay data-driven. Thank you.